Bubble tubes are a fantastic piece of equipment, and given it the right care, it will last you for years to come. What we want to look at here is some of the daily care that we would give to our bubble tube corner. So looking here at the bubble tube, its actual self, it's plastic cylinder. So by wiping this down with warm soapy water, absolutely great for it. The mirrors just behind here, you would use a window cleaner spray on those, making sure you don't do that now with the bubble tube, its actual self, because the plastic, it will turn it foggy. The vinyl just down here on the base of the corner bubble tube, is a vinyl, so we recommend that's a warm soapy water as well, drying it off with either a towel or wipes. Also then looking at our tails. So the tails are a fantastic piece of equipment, but kept right, they will keep the colour very well. So we ask for you to just do antibacterial spray or antibacterial wipes, and again, just giving them that wee dry off. Just to keep these from tangling, a way that we like to do is just after every use, just make sure you're even rubbing your fingers through them, basically to keep them tangles out. And then by simply just having them out in a straight line and then wrapping them around your bubble tube, almost just keeps them in a real good position. So again, as people's coming in to use them, they're sitting there, they're not tangled. It also prevents them from getting twisted, and sometimes what can happen when they go into that part is they can actually bend over and break. So if that does seem to happen on some of your tails, you need to go back to the very end to where the light source begins and just cut them there with a pair of scissors. There's no electricity in this, so don't worry about any currents coming through it, because it is only a light beam, okay? Now we want to go on to having a look at deep cleaning. And where we want to start here with is ionized water, deionized water or distilled water is what we would recommend for these bubble tubes. They would give the sort of cleaning process up to about a year before you would need to clean it out. Also, standard water is more than acceptable. What we suggest is by using both of those types of water, you still will need a liquid called BCB liquid. BCB liquid is there to help stop bacteria forming within inside the bubble tube. It also prevents quite a lot of the algae which forms. Now, if you start to notice this in your bubble tube, so our recommendation is usually around 8 to 10 weeks if you're using standard water with BCB liquid. Now, some may take longer, some may be shorter. Now, that'll depend on your room. If there's more light coming into your room, you're more likely that algae is going to form. So if that starts to happen, you'll see signs such as just above here where the cap is, you should see some green algae forming. The bubbles may reduce in the bubble tube. And also just down here, you may notice that the bubbles tube inside will become foggy. Now, just at the very top also of the bubble tube, you may notice sometimes that the water level will reduce. That is absolutely nothing to worry about. All that is at the top, you're seeing evaporation. You can just top that up with a jug every now and again if that's needed to be. So taking good care of your bubble tube, these are a list of the products that we would like to recommend. So this is your bubble tube cleaning brush, and this can be purchased at Learning Space, and this is simply for doing the inside of the bubble tube. Then we're looking at just a glass or mirror cleaner, great for just doing the mirrors, not the tube, remember. BCB liquid, this can also be purchased at Learning Space, and that's to help keep away the bacteria within the water. We have our surface cleaner, antibacterial. That's good for your vinyl, also good for putting on to your tails, just for that daily care. Basic wipes are good too, antibacterial for rubbing down the tails. A simple cloth, great. A jug for maybe just tapping up that wee bit of water that has evaporated. And another crucial one, which is able to be purchased on the Learning Space website, is your submersible pump. So now you've received your lovely new bubble tube. Now we're going to look at how we go about filling this. So you will need a plastic container, 64 litres or above will be enough to hold the water that you'll need. Your submersible pump, or you can, as I say, purchase a manual pump. It doesn't really matter to your preference. I just find this is very quick and easy and more efficient. You'll also need your bottle of BCB liquid, okay? So now we're going to start. We have a lovely container filled with nice, clean, fresh water. You can have that distilled or ionized, it's your choice, or just standard water. Again, what we're going to start with the process is we take our submersible pump, we go to the very top of our bubble tube and remove the lid, all right? So that can just sit by the side there. You take your pump, and remember what I said, is your grey bit is the bit that always is lodged in your water, because that is what sucks the water in. So you keep this in here, and then we go to the other end of the bubble tube pump, and the tubing here is just a simple bit of clear tubing that goes down into your pump. You don't need to get this all the way down. About halfway is probably enough so that it doesn't pop back out again. Simply then what we do is, at this point, we take 20 ml of our BCB liquid. Now, if you look at this very carefully, all I do is I loosen the red lid, and as you see this little funnel that goes up the side, I simply squeeze, and it gives me my pouch at the top a 20 ml fill. Now, these are very crucial things at this point, because this helps fight the bacteria or the algae, whatever may be in this. So we take off the red lid at this point, and we simply fill this into our bubble tube, okay? That's your treatment done, and then you just replace that lid, and putting this in a good safe place is crucial as well. So now we're ready to fill the bubble tube with a nice clean water, and all we simply do is we take our pump, plug it in, and it will switch on. You'll hear the buzz coming from the grey part, and you know then that the water is now starting to fill into the bubble tube. You leave that to sit, and as soon as it comes up to this black line, I would never go no further. Again, remember, allow for expansion. All the while this is happening, your BCB liquid is mixing as the water is flowing into the bubble tube. And you can see this process just will continue until it's filled. So when you hear that sound and you know that the pump is now put all the water into your bubble tube, it's just now remove the tubing, replace back into your container, and simply switch off your pump. At this point then, I just simply replace the lid on the top of the bubble tube. I take my container away, switch on my bubble tube, and everything starts to flow. Enjoy for the next 8 to 10 weeks. Or if you've used ionized water or distilled water, you will be able to enjoy it longer. Now, you've just enjoyed a good 8 to 10 weeks of your bubble tube, and now we're going to look at maybe giving it a good clean by taking the water out and removing. Now, you've maybe started to notice a wee bit of algae around the top. Now is a real good time to start to remove that water and get it a real good deep clean. So first of all, we want to start by making sure this bubble tube is switched off. The mains power's gone, okay? Then we'll go on to removing the top lid. So you can see here, it's a very simple process. That simply just pushes down in. All you're doing is just taking it up and removing it, okay? Now, we're now inside the bubble tube. So now what we're going to do is a simple container. This one here, I recommend anything above sort of 64 litres is a real good container for draining your water out of your bubble tube. Now, we're going to use a product here called the submersible pump. As you can see here, this is the grey end, and this is where the motor is that actually sucks the water out. So you want this to be in your water at all times. So I'm simply going to submerge the pump down into the bubble tube, and I simply just keep pushing the tube down into the bubble tube until it reaches the very, very bottom. Now, as I keep going, you can simply see that, and you'll feel a slight wee bump at the bottom, and that's when you'll know it has lodged at the bottom. Making sure then this end of the tubing is into your container. And now what we're going to look at is the process of now removing the water from the actual tube. So you've got your container in place, you've got your pump in place, and it's just a matter now of switching the pump on. And you will start to see the water coming from the tube. It starts to decrease in its level, and that's it now filling up into the container. We do recommend at this point you do keep an eye on this. Don't leave it and just walk away, because we don't want nothing to spill or fall or overflow. So now that your bubble tube has now emptied, it's a matter now of just switching off your pump to make sure that it's not taking continuing on with the motor when there's no water in it. So at this stage, you simply take your container away. So by removing this tubing, be careful also that there still needs some water that is gathered in this, so it will drip all over the place. What I like to do at this point is simply just put the two ends back into the bubble tube, and it keeps everything safe. Remove your container, take it to an outside drain because it is dirty water, and we get rid of that, okay? Then what I recommend at this point is you clean out this container and put some lovely clean water in, usually just filling it back up again. So at this point, we're going to look at cleaning the inside of our bubble tube, which is crucial. So now what we're going to do is we're going to simply take a surface cleaner with antibacterial, all right? We'll go into the bubble tube in the inside and we give it 2 to 3 sprays. Simple as. And that's it. And all we do now is let that settle for about 2 or 3 minutes, just to give it time to get inside the bubble tube. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get some warm, not boiling water in jug, and we're simply going to fill this into the bubble tube. Okay. And we're going to take that roughly till about a quarter fill of the bubble tube. So once that's in there, we let that sit and settle for around about half an hour, 45 minutes. It really gives it time for, if there's any algae down below in the bottom of the bubble tube, it gives it a chance to sort of work on it and break it up and free it. We then move to our bubble tube brush. This is a great piece of equipment for actually getting down inside the bubble tube. So what we do now is then we place this part down in, simply goes inside the bubble tube, and you will see here, if you twist, I can then extend the bubble tube pole. So this allows me to get right down inside the bubble tube. And at this point, I recommend when you're at the very bottom, you simply turn the pole 6 or 7 times. And that'll get rid of and free up any algae that's in the very bottom of the bubble tube. So as you come up and down of the tube like this here, you'll see at all times what it's actually doing is it's cleaning the inside of the bubble tube. So I recommend you just keep doing that for as long as you think it needs, and dependable, I suppose, again, on how dirty the inside of the bubble tube is. So once that's removed, at this point it is a good idea to drain out your quarter of fill of water that is in here. So that there is going to be quite dirty at this point. So simply what you're doing again is you're taking your pump again. Remember, the grey bit of the motor is what submerges into the water. Feed this down in and drain that fill out back into your container. Go and dump that in a drain, and then you're good to then come back and have a look at seeing how clear this water really is. So I recommend do another fill about a quarter of the size of the tube. At this point, it'll start to give you an idea if the water is clear. If it's not, and you think, I maybe need to go again. If at this point you think, right, no, it is good and clear, well then look, it's just time to start filling the bubble tube completely up. What I recommend is just before you do that is you put your BCB liquid in at this point. It is a 20 ml container. That is a treatment that goes back in. Again, this is here to help stop bacteria and algae and stuff like that forming in. So that's really, at that point, we are going to then refill with some lovely, clean, fresh water. Again, you may want to use distilled or deionized, or you maybe just want to use standard water. Either way, make sure again you are using your BCB liquid. Hope you enjoy. Thanks.